self. If the self existed as it appears to the innate conception, it would necessarily exist in the ways refuted here. The 11th chapter continues the refutation of truly existent time, begun in the 9th chapter, as part of the extensive presentation of the selflessness of phenomena with specific reference to products. By refuting the true existence of functional things existing in a temporal context, it is shown that time itself cannot have true existence. Time can neither be a permanent functional thing nor an independent cause, because past, present and future can only be posited in dependence on one another. Neither time nor that which exists within a temporal context can be posited except in relation to each other. Since time operates and can be understood only in relation to things and events, it is not an independent phenomenon. If it were truly existent, things could undergo no change and there would be nothing impermanent.
Time cannot be a permanent cause and produce an impermanent effect, for then cause and effect would be totally disparate in nature. If a thing existed while in the future, as is claimed by the Vaibhasikas, for example, the effect would already exist at the time of the cause, and there would be no sense in making any effort to accomplish a particular result. Effects would, in that case, exist without the need for causes, contrary to the normal operation of actions and their results. On the other hand, if future effects were utterly non-existent, it would be senseless to try to develop insights in order to overcome future disturbing emotions and suffering.
Refutation of truly existent permanent time indirectly also refutes the arising of effects from incompatible causes as well as their fortuitous production. In order to understand and gain conviction regarding the relationship of actions and their effects, we must gain a sound understanding of the relationship between the past, present and future. The 12th chapter begins by examining what qualities make one an ideal recipient for explanations concerning emptiness. Only benefit ensues for both student and teacher when the nature of reality is explained to such a person, while in the absence of these qualities the consequences may be grave.
Someone who is not genuinely open-minded and unbiased easily misunderstands even what has been well and clearly explained. Although one may accept that liberation can be achieved by overcoming faulty states of mind, lack of open-mindedness prevents one from recognizing that only a correct understanding of reality can eradicate them completely. To attain freedom, we need to know the correct means. It is thus vital to gain conviction in the importance and efficacy of understanding emptiness. Through lack of intelligence, people follow misleading teachers and are led astray into thickets of wrong views. Lack of interest prevents one from finding out how to gain liberation and from following what was explained by the Buddha, who taught from his own experience. The ideal recipient for instruction on emptiness is therefore open-minded, intelligent and interested.
Ingrained ideas about the self prevent ordinary people from considering the possibility of emptiness, and cause them to fear it. Since rejecting emptiness makes it difficult to attain a good rebirth and impossible to achieve liberation, great care must be taken to prepare students sufficiently and ensure that they are receptive, otherwise this precious teaching acts as a poison instead of a panacea. A skilled teacher can recognize who is and who is not ready to receive such instruction. The text continues by briefly identifying the nature of reality and explaining its importance, since neither liberation nor enlightenment can be reached without understanding it. The purpose of studying it is soteriological, and not to outshine opponents in debate. Nevertheless, since a person who understands emptiness cannot be beguiled by wrong views based on false arguments, understanding it automatically destroys the deceptive reasoning used by others. How could such a person not fail to pity those who are led away from the truth by false teachers? Since emptiness is difficult to understand, and since the transformation of one's attitudes, the focus of Buddhist practice, is hard to achieve, many people choose physical and verbal forms of practice by which they hope to attain liberation. Although nonviolence and emptiness are the salient principles of the Buddha's teaching, and the only way by which a good rebirth and liberation can be attained, attachment to their own particular religious practices and views prevents people from adopting what the Buddha taught. The wise, however, are unprejudiced enough to adopt whatever is truly beneficial, even if it belongs to a tradition other than their own. Our senses and what they experience exercise a compelling influence over us, because they seem to have true and objective existence. The 13th chapter demonstrates that neither the senses nor their objects exist as they appear. We feel that since objects are directly perceptible, they must have true existence. In that case, we should see every aspect of an object, such as a pot, at once. A pot, however, consists of many diverse elements of which visual perception apprehends only one, its visual form. Yet this visual form too has its specific components. Therefore the pot and its constituents are merely imputed to a collection of components, and do not exist in and of themselves as directly perceptible objects. This same analytical procedure should be applied to the objects of the other senses, to sounds, smells, tastes and tactile objects. One will discover that none of these are truly existent directly perceptible objects. A close analysis then follows, which establishes that all the components that make up a composite, even particles, have parts. Thus each is simultaneously a component, as well as a composite. An analysis of the relationship between the four elements and their outcome, visual form, is then made to demonstrate that they are neither inherently one nor different.
The senses and the process of perception are examined next. Confusing lack of true existence with total non-existence, the opponent argues that the Madhyamaka presentation of the senses contradicts what was said by the Buddha about the eyes and so forth being the maturation of past actions. In answer, it is established that although nothing can sustain ultimate analysis, since nothing is findable when subjected to this kind of investigation, our experience confirms the existence of our senses and other phenomena. Thus the Buddha's statements about the relationship between actions and their effects are in no way contradicted, since such statements refer to the conventional existence of actions and their effects. Inquiry is then made as to whether the eye and the visual perception it induces function simultaneously or consecutively, and whether the eye goes toward its object or not. If motion is involved, does it occur before, during, or after perception? If no motion is involved, all objects should be equally visible. If the eye were an inherent instrument of perception, its function would not depend on a multitude of other factors. In that case, it should also see itself. None of the factors involved in the process of perception, neither objects, sense organs, or their related perceptions, exist inherently or operate independently.
A similar investigation is then carried out in relation to sound and its perception. Does sound emit noise or travel silently? Is it apprehended through contact or not? Does the mind travel toward objects or not? What is the mind's relationship to the senses? How does recognition, which identifies things, function if things do not exist inherently? In each case, the conclusion is the same: nothing is findable nor can be pinpointed under such analysis. Yet events, objects and perception occur, arising in dependence on a combination of many different factors. Their dependent arising is a true source of wonder and amazement. We must learn to recognize that though things appear in one way and exist in another, and though they cannot be found when subjected to a scrutiny that examines their fundamental nature, they do exist and operate. The 14th chapter continues by refuting extreme conceptions of reified existence and total non-existence. If phenomena were inherently existent, they should be independent and findable when sought by a reasoning consciousness analyzing their final mode of existence, but they are neither. Emphasis is placed on the fact that ultimate or inherent existence is being refuted, and that this should not be misinterpreted to mean that things do not have valid conventional existence.
The reason of not being inherently one or many is first presented concisely and then applied to refute non-Buddhist as well as Buddhist contentions, in order to establish that neither what is imputed nor its basis of imputation has true existence. The text first examines whether the pot and its constituents, like visual form, are inherently one or different. If they were inherently one, there should be a pot wherever there is a visual form. Alternatively, if the pot possessed visual form as something inherently different from itself, the two would be unrelated, and we should be able to see a pot without necessarily seeing its form. In developing this examination of the relationship between the pot and its parts, the text investigates